Welcome to Swiftly Spoken, a fan-made Taylor Swift podcast in which we break down her lyrics, deep dive into full album retrospectives, and theorise about what may be coming next. We are your hosts, as always, Lisa and Cameron, and this week we're going to be discussing what we think may be next for the Taylor's version era of it all, as well as taking a look back at our old predictions for the re-recorded albums that she has since released. So firstly, as a disclaimer, with this episode we aren't demanding more music from Taylor. We do recognise and realise that we just very recently got the Tortured Poets department, and we're also in the midst of the Eras tour. But because of that, we thought it would be interesting to review some of our old predictions and bring the other ones that haven't kind of like been re-recorded yet up to speed with the current information we now have in this context. We haven't spoken about Taylor's versions since basically last year when 1989 came out, and to be honest, our very first prediction episode was the Reputation Taylor's version episode, and that was a couple of years ago at this point.
Like 2022?
I think so, in January of one of those years. So that's a long time ago. Yeah, a lot has happened since then. The whole idea of Taylor's version and the evolution of what it has turned into has completely changed, and that is really what we're going to be looking at. What we predicted, what we got wrong, what we got right, and what we think that means for the ones that are missing. It's also a good time to do this now because we're kind of in musical limbo because of the Eras tour. Despite being in the Tortured Poet department era, it does also feel like we are just generally in the Eras era, everything all at once. So how do you feel about that? How do you feel about the Tortured Poets department being released in the midst of the tour?
Yes, I have to agree. Like, I feel like there's kind of, when you think of like previous eras and stuff, they've had this kind of like very focused moment on like that album, that hairstyle, that outfit, whatever, which is quite hard when she's currently trying to celebrate all and every era.
Definitely.
But I don't mind it. Like, I think it doesn't, I don't think it's like having a negative effect on Tortured Poets. Like, it's literally like number one album everywhere.
True, very true, still. Yeah.
So I don't think it is having, I think if anything it's probably having more as a positive. But I think the thing that I do miss is that with eras and stuff, whereas we used to have like a full kind of like era full of outfits and this, like, you know, like Tortured Poets, I feel like the only real outfits we have is Eras tour outfits from the Tortured Poets era, the Fortnite music video, and the Grammys outfit.
Yeah, it is. I guess it's not so much, obviously I'm not complaining either, but it's not so much that it feels like it's been very like a speed run era in a way, because it's come out a month, one single, one MV, and then we went straight into tour with that incorporated into the tour, which honestly we are so lucky that she even was able to do that with everything else going on at the same time. As always, the amount of work that goes into all of that is absolutely incredible, but it just, I don't know, it feels different because of it's all happened so fast, which again makes me feel a bit funny and weird about talking about these Taylor's versions, because honestly myself, I don't really want them yet. That sounds like really weird as well. It's not that I don't want content, but I just feel like I want Taylor to have a break. I'm like, please.
So spoiled.
Yeah.
Unbelievably spoiled with stuff. Like, you know, if and, you know, again, this isn't to kind of be braggy, but like, if you were a fan, you know, pre-Reputation, you know, like, you know, that kind of wait in between 1989 and Reputation, whereas those 3 years.
Wow.
Like, you know, no one was really complaining. You know, like,
no, that's the thing.
Like,
it was just a time.
We got I Don't Want to Live Forever, and that was kind of enough. Whereas now I feel like sometimes we get something and then it's what's next, and it is a bit like, well, enjoy what was just come, you know. Like, I feel like even now, like, I think there's some songs on Speak Now Taylor's version where I'm like, have I even really processed? You know,
I agree. There's been so much. If you really think about it, from 2019 until now, those last, you know, few years, 5-6 years, if we count Lover as the starting point, have been just jam-packed with albums.
Non-stop, yeah. Albums, singles, you know, movie songs. Like, even when you think of like Carolina, Beautiful Ghost.
Yeah. We haven't really, except for that mini kind of moment where she pulled away for a few months.
Post-Red.
Yeah, post-Red, pre-Midnight.
Post-Red TV, yeah. But even when we got Joker and the Queen.
True. We still had little things here and there. That was the moment with the least amount of content. But even then, we still had content. There's never been a moment that we've been
we come off the back of a 30-track album.
Exactly. This is it. And then we were heading into a hefty album as well, because then we went into Midnights, and then we had Midnights 3 AM edition, and everything that brought about. And then we've headed straight from that into the Eras tour. And since then, while we're on the Eras tour, we have 3 albums, basically. So that brings us to now. And at the beginning of this year, we did put out a bingo card, which honestly, it's looking a bit, right? It's looking a bit rough, right? Yeah. Although we did speak about what was back then TS11, and we did speak about re-recordings. We did think Reputation was coming next, because I think everyone was so hyped up for it. And then we said maybe TS11, as it was known back then, towards the end of the year. Now, obviously, because we have already got TS11, which turned out to be the Tortured Poets Department. How are we feeling about Reputation for this year? I know people still are very much like every single little thing that happens is Reputation.
Yes. Do you know what's really weird? And this is probably a strange thing, but I almost forget the Reputation is going to be re-recorded, and I almost
I know
thought about the fact that it's going to have a new cover.
It's just funny because I think there's such a natural divide between 1989 and Reputation in her life, in her career, in the aesthetic, in her looks, and 1989 was such a big thing, and then obviously everything that went down after it. It really does feel like, I always kind of picture Reputation in the same bag, in the same time frame or period as Lover, because they are also so intertwined as albums as well, that I agree with you. It does feel a bit strange. And also her singing voice, her sound is very similar to what it is now, to be honest with you. I do think it's going to be the album with the least amount of noticeable change.
Fingers crossed. But yeah, I kind of forget, and I don't know about if we will. I suppose we've still got, months left of the year, really, and it's not unlike Taylor to... I feel like she's kind of been sticking to this pattern, really.
Yes.
We had Evermore, then we had 2, then we had 2 re-records, Fearless, Red, then we had Midnights, then we've had 2 re-records, 1989, Speak Now, then we've had Tortured Poets. I feel like now we've got 2 left, so I feel like that is naturally what's going to be next. It's probably and it would make sense really to use the Eras tour while old eras and stuff are in the public conscience, and people are streaming set list playlists and surprise songs and things like that. It makes sense to release it then. So I don't think it's off the cards. I just haven't even processed the fact that it's a possibility. You know what I mean? What about you?
Yeah, I agree. I think, again, I'm in 2 minds because of that, especially not to bang on about Reputation because I hate to be that person, but especially with Reputation because it is on the set list. So it is experiencing growth because of this tour. Whereas for Debut, for example, it can kind of be put on the back burner because it doesn't have its spotlight in the tour, sadly. But we won't go into all of that right now. So I do feel if we get anything this year, it would be Reputation because of that. Now, I might be wrong, and she might want to give Debut its moment, or she might want to wait and follow her pattern, and then that would mean perhaps could be next year. Either way, it's interesting to discuss. As always, one of the things that we say is we always look towards what may be coming next. That doesn't mean we know anything, and it doesn't mean we're demanding anything. That's what we want to get at, basically. Again, like you said, we have been extremely spoiled over the last few years, and it's been so much that I do think we need to go back at some point and kind of analyze certain things like the Tortured Poets Department, which if you think about it, we haven't really done much analysis. We've done our reactions, but we haven't been able to sit down because there's so much going on.
Because I really liked our things with our retrospectives. I really enjoyed our Fearless Taylor's version 1. The Evermore one was definitely a favourite episode of mine we've recorded because it's nice to kind of reanalyze, and even Midnights, I in the to my Eras tour shows, obviously I was kind of trying to revisit album, because with Torture, but whenever a new album comes out, even the Taylor's version, that kind of dominates your listening for a period of time, and it means that sometimes you're like, God, I haven't listened to that album in ages, which basically means I haven't listened to that album in more than 2 weeks. But I suddenly thought I'll go back to Midnights, and I'd forgotten how it just still sounds so fresh and so...
It is.
God,
really.
This could be released now and still be just as exciting and fresh. So it's quite nice to then do the retrospectives, because then it does kind of... You do reanalyse them and look at them in different ways, and afterwards I always want to go back and re-listen, because I've thought about something that maybe I hadn't before. And so, definitely it'll be fun at some point to kind of revisit Torture Poets, revisit its success, revisit, what our favourites were. Has it kind of stood the test of time? Where does it stand in terms of other Taylor Swift albums?
If you guys are interested in all of that, please let us know how you feel about what may be coming next, how quickly things come. If you want us to reanalyze things, starting from Midnight's, the Torture Poets department, whatever, because we also do try and talk about things that we think that you guys will be interested in hearing about. And the Taylor's version project is kind of a loose end at the moment because of those last two albums hanging in the balance. In order to adjust some of our predictions for Reputation and Debut, because I do think some of the things that we say, especially for that Reputation episode, are a little bit outdated at the moment.
Yes.
Yeah, we're first going to be looking at some of the things we already mentioned for the two albums that we now have. So we can kind of contrast our main ideas, what we got right, what we got wrong, and use that as a springboard to go into Debut and Reputation. So starting off with Speak Now, Taylor's version, which was the first one to be re-released last year. Some of the ideas that we had were, for example, Drop Everything Now release, because of the lyric, right? Which obviously we didn't get right. But did we though? Because she did sing Sparks Fly when she announced Speak Now, Taylor's version.
Yes, and
so
technically, she never released anything prior.
That is true.
An actual Taylor Swift thing anyway, so technically it was all released at the same time, but not in the way we were anticipating, where it's like out at midnight tonight. Technically, we were kind of half a little bit right.
She did mention that line. Obviously, a Drop Everything Now release has to be planned with a lot of advance. And as we saw what happened with Folklore and especially Evermore vinyls didn't come out until the summer after, which is absolutely crazy to think nowadays, like, to not have that at the same time. And at that point, we already had Fearless, Taylor's version. So like I said, these eras and re-recordings have really bled into each other.
I think also what was interesting that we discussed, which thankfully obviously we never fell for it, like we're not stupid, was that Taylor was going to change the name to Enchanted. What planet did anyone think that was good? You know what I mean?
I don't know.
Things people say. Thank God that never happened.
It's the exciting thought of what could be. Realistically, we did say in the moment as well, even though she had said originally, she wanted to call it that and then it was revised and changed. The point of the re-recording projects is to have these replace the originals.
Carbon copies.
As copies, exactly. Despite that, obviously, there are changes.
Interesting, yes.
Yeah, there are changes. For example, one big change is something that we spoke about quite a lot when we were giving our guesses as towards what was going to happen with this song in particular, and that is Better Than Revenge. Now we know what happens.
There was a lot of talk, wasn't there, of like maybe before the song she'll say something, maybe she'll say something before, but she's actually never addressed the lyric change.
No.
She's basically just acted like nothing's changed, and that those just are now the lyrics, and we did kind of say that potentially that it wouldn't be the whole song changed, it would just be that one mattress lyric, which obviously now matches.
Yes.
Which I like. I don't have a problem with.
No, it's something similar to what happened with Picture to Burn in the end. Things change, rightfully so, in many cases. Yeah, it was revised, but it doesn't change the sentiment in this case. It still talks... It changes it in the sense that now we all are blaming the guy, really, whose fault it is for be running off with someone else, I guess. No, it was a clever thing to do. It fits pretty well. Once you get used to it, and if you really want to listen to the other one, it's still out there, still available. So another interesting thing that we spoke about were two songs in particular, Safe and Sound and Eyes Open. Now, we spoke about these here in this episode when we discussed Speak Now, because Red was already out at that time and she hadn't. For me, I have always seen them as Red tracks. I know that you would debate me on that, right?
I beg to say, I'll fight you to the grave.
But are they though? Because now we know.
They were performed on the Speak Now World Tour. You know what I mean?
But
how can they be Red?
Now we know that they are in the more Red chapter of it all. She did re-record them. We got them previous to Speak Now, Taylor's version, so we did get them in or around the time, so at least there's that.
Yeah.
Other than that, the most important and interesting thing that we're going to be looking at as we go through these predictions are the vault tracks. To give ourselves a bit of credibility, I think, before we get into Debut and Reputation, we need to look at what we got right and what we got wrong for the vault tracks of Speak Now and 1989. Now, Speak Now, we've got to start off with two major things that we got completely wrong. Battle/Let's Go and Drama Queen. These are both songs that have been leaked. They are out there. They're in circulation. Very easy to come by. And they did not make it to Speak Now Taylor's version, even though we thought that they may have a chance, especially Battle/Let's Go, which has been mourned by the fandom.
Floating around forever. Yeah. I think what's interesting with these, and obviously we didn't know this at the time, and the reason why they're not included is because they are co-writes. And obviously Taylor, what's interesting with the re-release of Speak Now is that she wanted it. Clearly that was what her intention was, that it was all very self-written. And well, it was all entirely self-written. Hence why obviously if this was a movie, it was cut from the Speak Now track list and shoved onto More Fearless. But that's basically why Battle and Drama Queen didn't make it, which I think is a shame, I can't lie. But I still find, I remember when Drama Queen got leaked, and I was like, this is just strange timing, and then not being featured, and this perfect, crisp audio of, you know what I mean? There is, I'm not saying that someone on our team's leaked it at all, but sometimes leaks are very coincidental. Sometimes they are...
Just a bit coincidence.
For certain reasons.
Yeah.
But I just thought that was interesting.
We don't know.
We don't know. And then was never featured. So it's nice that we have a version of it.
Yeah, at least there's that. Yeah,
But yeah, that's why those two weren't featured on there. But even though we got that very wrong, we did get some things very, very right. So in that episode, we mentioned all sorts of rumoured tracks for Speak Now. And the ones that we mentioned were Castles Crumbling. Tick. That was on there. He Lies, obviously, didn't appear. I Can See You, which appeared.
Yep.
Someone Just Told Me, obviously didn't. Wonderful Things also didn't. We also mentioned Bother Me, which obviously didn't appear. Foolish One.
There is, yep.
And Timeless.
Yeah.
So that's basically the whole bar, When Emma Falls in Love.
Yeah.
And Electric Touch.
True, yes.
You mentioned all but those two.
Yeah, so that was exciting to see too, that we hadn't really had much knowledge on or about, and then 4 that we did very much know were in circulation and decided to give a mention to. Obviously we didn't know much or anything about them, but it is interesting to see that on our exploration of this time frame in her life, they made it. These songs finally made it. Yeah. Other than that, we also spoke about collaborations. One of our ideas was that perhaps this album in specific wouldn't have any collaborations because of the idea of promoting it as a very self-made, self-written on her own, and that's that, which is interesting. With what happened in the end, she did very much have collaborators, as we know. The ones that we mentioned were rock-leaning, so we did get that right at least. And I do think...
Yeah, we got Avril Lavigne, Owl City, that was the kind of vibe.
Yeah.
Kravitz, that was the vibe we were leaning towards, which...
The vibe was right.
The people that were featured.
Yeah, so I do think... points for that, but we didn't actually get... We might have mentioned Hayley, right? Yeah. Yeah, this is a long time ago now, but I think I agree with you that we might have floated her name around. Revising things, going through it now, some of the ideas and vibes we definitely had. Other things, for example, that no collaborators, funnily enough, came to pass with 1989, which leads us to that album. So for 1989, we then got it at the second half of last year. And what is funny to me is how each of these albums have been promoted. So obviously we've spoken about this many, many times, right? Fearless was obviously the tentative test of the waters. Yeah. Red was the all-in, let's go.
Rollout.
It was.
Yeah.
Right now, Red had more promotion and rollout and MVs than the current era that we are in. So then when Speak Now came along, obviously the Eras tour was being used as a platform for that album. We then got Long Live added into the set list. You know, she pulled out all the stops, especially that weekend, to celebrate it. And we also got the MV for I Can See You, which set up a lot of Taylor's version lore as well. But then when 1989 came out, obviously it did have a bigger treatment than the previous ones because we got versions this time. We got exclusive tracks. We got the remix track. We got the special deluxe version. So it did have that rollout, but no MVs.
Which I do think, it makes sense because, she was, in the midst of Eras Tour.
Yeah.
And clearly was in the midst of making Torture Poet.
Yeah.
So it makes sense, but it is just interesting that 1989, out of all of them, funny enough, the two, Fearless and 1989, are the two that obviously are lacking a Taylor's version music video. Fearless makes sense, as we've said a million times. It was tentative. They were unsure of the reaction. They weren't about to put a major big budget into it when they didn't even know if people were going to respond well or even bother listening to it.
Yeah.
It's just interesting that 1989 just didn't have any music video of any shape, size, form, especially when Is It Over Now became a big single. Like
massive.
A radio single.
Yeah.
Much more so than I Can See You. So that is interesting. And also, they kind of not fumbled the bag at all, but their initial trying to push like a slut as the single was also strange.
Yeah.
That was an interesting choice when slut was the most kind of like un-radio friendly out of all of them. All those Vault tracks. It was a great bait and switch track. It is a great bait and switch. It's a very good track for what it is and the way that she plays with what we thought it was going to be in the quotes and that, but then saying, you know, I don't care, let them call me that. And here we're going to get into a bit of muddy waters because I am going to bring up something I don't really want to think about, but do we think the slut possible collaboration was real, and is that why things got changed? I just think I still stand by. I can't remember if we've said this on the podcast.
Yeah. If not, let's clear it up. Yeah.
Let's hash it out.
Yeah.
I just know for a fact, like vinyl, as Taylor said herself, like she handed in Midnights in like 2021 so that the vinyl and stuff could be produced for it. And once like vinyl's made and done, that's, you know, like you can't just recall thousands of vinyl.
Right.
And I would be amazed if there's only ever been one
found. Yeah, this is it.
Yeah, with this supposed Matty Healy feature.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Only ever one. And I just think, how on earth was only one? It's like
escaped containment.
Yeah, and like, why didn't that pressing have that version on it? And basically everything ever has leaked.
I don't know. It's hard, isn't it? Because there were a lot of rumours at the time, even from certain like insiders or things that
even Matty Healy said that they did versions of Midnight.
Exactly, they have been recording music together in some shape or form. But you know, from what we know now, and looking back to that time when 1989 was nearing, I'm sure that she did not want anything to do with that man. And if that meant burning every single vinyl, then she would have done that and locking things up. I don't know. I am hesitant to believe it as well because of what you're saying. Because if one escaped containment, why is it not printed on that vinyl as well? Why was it only the sleeve?
Because also it wouldn't just be like print. You know what I mean? Like this is mass-produced music.
Yeah.
Just like one press. Like there would, if the wrong, you know, JPEG was put up when they were, it would be on that group, tens of thousands. Yeah, there would be a batch.
Yeah.
So I just don't know. I really don't know. I guess like we'll find out one day.
Yeah.
If it ever gets leaked.
Yeah.
You know the truth. But I think
perhaps
Taylor also was trying to make 1989, while Speak Now was like, I wrote this all by myself, 1989 was very much like, I was this successful all by myself.
True.
This album was just as big, just me on it.
And that is really interesting to see how, and I like how that worked out, to be honest, whether it was on purpose, by accident, because of a twist of fate, whatever it was. I actually do really like how 1989 is the only one with no collaborations. Obviously, we did discuss collaborations back in the day. We floated around some big pop names here and there. Obviously, our dream one, which I won't say anymore. I banged on about that for a year. And it didn't happen, so that's fine.
Yeah.
Will I get over it? No, but life goes on.
I think what is interesting is we spoke about it as like a summer album.
Yeah.
And having a summer release. And I think even though technically that's kind of right, because now it has been turned into a summer album, I don't think it was in the way we thought. We thought we were definitely going to get a New York Polaroid photo shoot. That was the kind of vibe I think we were going for, which obviously Taylor did a massive bait and switch and was like, no, I'm going to make this a beach album.
Yeah.
In terms of the photo shoot, which I think was a bit of a wild switch. I'm not sure. I was thinking about it the other day, actually, whether that was because that's how now she envisions the album, or whether it's because logistically trying to take Taylor Swift around New York and have a photo shoot.
That's not possible anymore.
Just is a logistical problem. Most of 1989 was in an apartment.
Exactly.
Realistically.
Exactly.
You'd just be seen going into an apartment.
Exactly.
But I was thinking about it, whether that was intentional. But that was one thing that we did mention that was interesting. I think another thing with 1989 is with that kind of vault and stuff, we were pretty on it.
Oh, yeah.
We've been saying before, we need to pat ourselves on the back for that, because not only did we obviously say Bad Blood remix featuring Kendrick, we said that it would not be a vault track, but potentially
as an extra,
potentially included and as a deluxe, which was true. So we got that right, which was, I think, it was always going to happen realistically. That was the original single version. It's such a staple of the time. Exactly. Then Sweeter Than Fiction, which obviously, again, I'm still just so frustrated that if this was a movie now as Fearless, Eyes Open and Safe and Sound is red, Sweeter Than Fiction 1989, as someone that has stood by the fact that those are not that,
I'm so vindicated. I'm so vindicated. I'm joking.
Mad.
It doesn't matter what you think it is in the end. It's absolutely fine. I get what you mean. It is her from the Red album photo shoot in that original. I get that.
The only little performance she's done of it, which is like that weird little like acoustic daytime
snippet,
seconds of it. She has bangs and red hair.
True.
She hadn't even cut her hair yet. Like you couldn't even,
True.
You couldn't even say that. Like the Red Tour, half of it she had like 1989, and she wasn't even in that. No, but whatever. But the thing that is interesting about that is that still hasn't made it onto streaming.
Will it ever make it to streaming? I don't know.
We'll never find out, I guess. What is interesting is we also mentioned about the rumoured title track, which obviously we debunked.
Yes,
Never made it because
it wasn't real.
I think we also mentioned as well, which was a good one, was the co-write with Diane Warren.
Yeah.
Which then turned into the track Say Don't Go, which is interesting that we got that, because we were very right with that, and I feel like that was slightly forgotten about, really, and obviously now has kind of seen the light of day. So we were definitely on it with the vault track. I think Collaborators was the thing that basically...
Oh no, that was terrible.
We mentioned a potential like Carly Rae Jepsen feature, maybe Bleachers, maybe something with Imogen Heap, obviously Harry Styles, none of that sort of like day, and I'm more than happy with that, because obviously as a Taylor fan first, I often quite like it when songs are just her. I feel like,
I get that,
especially when she's kind of written the song, there's kind of more emotional
ties to it,
potentially portrayed. And sometimes I do love a collab. Nothing New, I think, is absolutely gorgeous and is probably one of my favourite Taylor, if not my favourite Taylor Swift collabs. So they're definitely welcomed and I think they are fun, but often I quite like it when it's just kind of one perspective, especially if that was the way the song was initially intended. But I think in terms of Speak Now and 1989, we got it pretty...
Yeah, obviously we had a lot of things that we just kind of like said, well, could be this, could be that. They're all in the air. Other things that we got completely wrong, but the things that we did get right are quite interesting as we move in now to Reputation and debut Taylor's version. So I think here we kind of revise some of our information because time goes on, things change. For example, like we said, the Reputation episode was recorded a very long time ago, and many things have happened in Taylor's personal life, in the music industry, and many of those things could lead to very, very different versions of this album, I have to say. Also, now we have information about Taylor's version of Reputation because Taylor very, very openly spoke about it.
Said the vault tracks are fire. We've also heard snippets of Look What Made Me Do and Angelica.
Yep. So that already brings us up to speed with that. An interesting thing to note as well is one of the first things that we said in that episode was that Cruel Summer, had been, people had asked for that as a single for many...
Had to have a single.
Exactly. And a similar thing had happened with Getaway Car. Well, now we know what happened, the fate of Cruel Summer, which was to... Eventually, it went number one. If people bang on about Getaway Car for long enough, perhaps the same... I don't think it was as... Do you think Getaway Car was... people really were into it as much as Cruel Summer? Perhaps at the time, yeah.
Around that kind of Lover... Around that Lover era, that kind of post, end of Reputation Lover era, it was almost like the All Too Well 10 thing, wasn't it? Whereas now...
Yeah.
I feel like fans that maybe joined slightly later, pre-Taylor's version, maybe wouldn't really know about the kind of banging on about All Too Well 10, because now we've got it, so it's not as exciting.
Right.
But around that time, the whole Getaway Car thing was it was getting a bit like, oh God, stop banging on about it, Because weirdly, it did become a single in Australia.
Yeah.
Because there's that audio of Taylor saying, and up next, Getaway Car, my new single. She literally, and everyone was like, oh my God, but it just was to promote the Australian leg of the Eras tour, because they also did that weird
Reputation,
like, not the Eras tour, the Reputation tour. Yeah, they did that weird like Road to Reputation.
Yeah, a little documentary moment. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that it could potentially have a resurgence.
I think.
Obviously, it's not featured on the Eras tour at the moment.
No, but she has brought Jack out for it. You know what I mean?
True.
Yeah.
True.
I Did Something Bad.
I feel like, yeah, I Did Something Bad is the one that's being held.
It's being held back, isn't it? Yeah, definitely, yeah.
So I'm not sure if that might be more, but I could see it being so. I just think it would need like a refocus, whereas I feel like at the moment the kind of focus is still on Cruel Summer, really.
Honestly, after all this time, yeah, it's still quite a massive, massive song. Obviously now we have Tortured Poets Department songs to contend with it, but it is the song that carries the Eras tour. It's like the face of the Eras tour in a lot of ways. The same way as her Lover outfit is the image of the Eras tour.
Yes, yeah.
Then we also spoke about some of the vault tracks for Reputation. So, for example, an interesting thing right now to discuss are the songs that have already been released in or around the era, shall we say. So, firstly, we have I Don't Want to Live Forever, and then we have This Is What You Came For. And they both have very different context to them. They both have very different, rights to them and people who collaborated on them. Obviously, I Don't Want to Live Forever was a collaboration. It was written for a soundtrack of a movie. It is under Republic from what we investigated. However, that doesn't seem to matter too much. It seems like Taylor does want to re-record a bit of everything and anything that Big Machine may have had their hands in any way possible. Obviously, we don't know all of the ins and outs and behind the scenes, but the way that she has played this song a few times now, it could be in the mix. Now, the only thing that kind of like draws me away from this one is the Zayn collaboration.
You say that,
yeah,
but Zayn recently has had a bit of a resurgence with his...
Okay, you're in the know, good.
Quite popular in the public conscience. Plus, she got Civil Wars back together.
That is true.
Being funny.
You're not... Yeah, that is true. We forget about that.
She brought back people that like split up.
Yeah, and it was very drama. Yeah.
Yeah, and obviously they're not listed as Civil Wars, they are listed as
yeah, exactly.
At the end of the day they are. And they've both spoken very openly about, how proud they feel of that song. So I feel like it's one of those things that obviously, not to kind of get into celebrity gossip because we don't really like to, but at the end of the day, it's just, call a spade a spade. Gigi and Zayn dated. Obviously they split up. I don't think it's overly amicable from what we see in the public world. We don't know. We're not friends with them.
No.
It's none of my business.
No.
But that potentially is a little bit awkward because obviously it is a friend's ex. But I just think...
But then again, it's like...
I don't think Gigi would ever have...
It's a job.
It was a song.
Yeah.
It's a song. You know what I mean? Like,
that's it.
It's nothing that crazy. And like, even Sabrina recently has spoken out about the Skims collab.
Exactly.
She's spoken to Taylor about it. And it's like, yeah, whatever, it's money, get your money, like, it's not the end of the world.
Yeah.
So I don't think that would be a problem. Back then,
maybe.
We were both a bit like, oh, not sure.
Yeah, but now time has gone on.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think it would be a problem at all. I could 100% see that being featured.
I agree. Maybe like Sweeter Than Fiction, or maybe a little bit like Safe and Sound and Eyes Open. I'm feeling like a little, not actually on the track list, and if it is, it's right at the end, like Today Was a Fairy Tale, or slapped as an extra.
Yeah, a Sweeter Than Fiction. Definitely a Sweeter Than Fiction kind of... Sweeter Than Fiction hits different, kind of like...
Yeah, on some version of it. Yeah, but not widely. And that leads us to This Is What You Came For. This one is such a difficult one because I did not expect her to bring this song out again.
No.
Probably ever.
When she did it at the time, around like that 2016 time, it made sense.
Yeah.
Because like it was in the kind of public conscience, and that was her being like, yeah, I did write.
Yeah, this is part mine as well. Yeah.
But I still just think like, but would she? You know what I mean? Like that's quite a bold, because surely like people like Calvin Harris would have to have some sort of say as well.
Well, of course, he is a co-writer on that song. So as we know for the re-records, you have to be like a writer on the song to be able to do the whole re-recording process in, from the beginning. And even though the producers have changed, the writers cannot change. They are still the writers of those songs. Is there a workaround around that? I don't know.
That would have to be, because I was thinking about, when Taylor technically covered Look What You Made Me Do with the Jack and the Dolphin Club, but it wouldn't be a cover because it would be Taylor Swift, and like she is a writer. You know what I mean? Whereas Jack and the Dolphin Club was technically a different band.
Yeah. So that's a different kind of thing.
Technically a cover. I don't know how. I'm not sure logistically and legally
I think if she wants to do it,
she played
Calvin Harris has to somehow be involved. It is just how it is. He has, or more than that, he has to get a cut or something. Something has to happen in which, unfortunately, his name would appear.
It's just the fact she played it, that was rogue. Like, when she played that, I was like, what?
All these years later.
And because she's literally been saying, hasn't she, like, on London Night 3, she was like, oh, you know, I'm trying to play everything in my discography, and then that's when she brought out Gracie. So maybe it's interesting. I really don't know with this one.
It's a hard one because
about it.
It's not a collaboration, and we didn't know. Well, I mean, some of us knew, but or guessed.
Yeah.
But we didn't have confirmation for ever such a long time until, you know, everything kicked off.
Months later.
Yeah. So I don't know. And if this song does appear, it opens up a can of worms as to other songs written by Taylor that aren't necessarily, you know, Taylor's songs. For example, a certain Hannah Montana song. I'm not talking about Crazier.
Yes.
I'm talking about You'll Always Find Your Way Back Home.
Yeah, and even things like Best Days of Your Life by, Kelly Pickler.
Yeah.
Like, Taylor co-wrote that.
Yep.
She's going to record that. It's technically the same as This Is What You Came For. Like, she's in the backing vocal. She's like a backing vocalist.
Right. And she is a writer.
The lead singer.
Mm.
Yeah, you know, and is a writer. So it's like, yeah, what else could be then pulled in?
Where'd you draw the line?
Kind of. I think that with the Hannah Montana one, I think what will be most interesting with You'll Always Find Your Way Back Home is whether she plays that.
Yeah, if she plays it, that's a big... I don't know. Because it's different, but it's not. I just really don't know.
Yeah, because that one is a little bit more like Better Man Babe. You know, there's no dramas, like Miley Cyrus isn't written on it. It's
no.
like,
I think the only problem there would be how Disney feels about that, but I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
And then if she has the... Like, if she's legally allowed to re-record it as the writer.
See, these are the things that we aren't savvy on because we don't know all of the ins and outs of the music industry, nor do we know what things were signed at that time and how
exactly what the
deals were. Yeah, who owns how much percentage and how it worked.
Which is it's very, very complicated, and a lot more complicated than the average person would think. Like,
yeah, people who actually do know these things are the experts.
It's like,
yeah,
you own 4%, I get 5%.
Then people can sell their masters and they can, you know, sell it to someone else, and it's a whole thing. But we're just chatting about what could happen, possibly, now that we've seen these things. Interesting thing that we brought up during the Reputation Taylor's Version episode, which is such a dated episode when you think about it. It's so interesting to still go back and listen to.
Yeah, it was our 13th episode. Like, it was in season 1.
Oh my gosh.
Now, like, season 4, 3, something like that.
Yeah, the end of season 3, really. Oh gosh. One of the interesting things that we mentioned was the Lover rejects. Would they appear on the Rep Vault? Now, at that point, we only knew of these Lover rejects from a dodgy little write-up about them.
Yeah, the Inner Circle.
Exactly. Since then, in those few years, they were then leaked.
And one of them
has been released. Yeah, and performed. All of the Girls in Need. Obviously, All of the Girls has now transformed into All of the Girls You Loved Before. We have got this song. It's officially released. Part of More Lover, not Reputation. So there you go. At least we did mention it though. And yeah, performed and everything. Need, on the other hand, found dead in a ditch.
Yeah, it's weird because I thought that, you know, when she did that weird little droplet of songs, I thought that was going to be
a thing.
That was going to be like a recurring thing. Like,
yeah, you
know, with all the other kind of songs. It's just weird that, and that's where I thought things like Sweeter Than Fiction, all the Rogue ones, Sweeter Than Fiction, I Don't Want to Live Forever.
Yeah. In these little droplets.
Those might end up.
Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, it's just strange that that's never happened again. I thought that would have happened by now, unless potentially it could still be on the cards. But it's just weird that only one of them was released.
Oh, it is a bit sad. I would really love Need. If she wants to rebrand it as a Reputation, if she can rebrand, if this was a movie, as Fearless, then she can rebrand Need as Reputation. I don't care.
Yeah.
If Taylor's listening, you've got our green light. Now, something that we must reevaluate is some of these collaborations for the Reputation album.
Yeah.
Reputation is a hard album to think about because she was in such a vulnerable moment in her life that how could you even trust people to even release music with?
Who could she really reach out to? Yeah, exactly.
Of course, we know that she reached out to Future and Ed Sheeran, which Ed Sheeran obviously makes sense. Future, Rogue.
Yes.
Interesting.
Was Rogue... I think what it was obviously, like, Ed is like a very close friend of Taylor's, and at the time they were kind of hanging out a lot. Kind of Red, 1989, early Reputation era. But I think they had like a drunk... I think they got drunk and were like, oh, wouldn't it be funny if we got Future on this track?
Yeah.
And then they kind of got it.
Future like, yeah, sure.
It was almost like a bit of a kind of slightly accidental feature.
That's amazing, though. I love that.
Was slightly rogue, but
hoping they both return. We know that Ed will. In fact,
Ed definitely.
He probably's already been and done it, right? Yeah.
Oh yeah, I'd say so. I'm guessing he's probably done it. But yeah, Ed will definitely return in the future. Like realistically, like it only benefits them. Like
for sure. For sure.
And you know. And like Kendrick's done it. You know,
yeah, I don't see why not either. But speaking of Kendrick, one thing that I think we can completely erase from history is a possible Drake collaboration.
Yeah.
I don't want it. No one wants it. We know a lot more about Drake now than we did back then, and I don't want anything to do with that man.
I think it's interesting because obviously we were kind of basing it off of the fact they did hang out during that kind of late 1999 Bleachella era.
And at that point, like, photos were being put up of them together from that time.
Suddenly, like, and then obviously I Forgot You Existed on Lover, things like that. And I feel like it's weird because Taylor hasn't really ever mentioned Drake since.
No, and I'm glad for it, to be honest.
He is constantly mentioning, he said that, like, she's the biggest gangster in the industry and that's why he moved his album. Some track. I don't really know. I don't really listen to rap music. I listen to country girls.
Yeah.
Like, you know, that's not my fault. So
we'll stay in our lane.
Butchering what he's saying. Exactly, but I don't think that's going to happen.
With everything that has come out since, and then the Kendrick and Drake back and forth, and the allegations and everything else.
Not going to happen.
Yeah. Other names that we mentioned, I also can't see happening. Like, this possible collaboration with Selena Gomez that has been spoken about for forever and a day.
It's never going to happen.
I just can't see it happening anymore, no.
Yeah, and I feel like Selena is I feel like she's pulling herself away from music. Like
she's so booked and busy with other things, though. I get it.
Yeah,
I get it.
And she just seems like she's much preferred
happier that way.
World, yeah. Which I think is a shame because I think that her music, like Revival and Rare, are actually really good albums, and like I feel like they're really underrated and not given enough credit for how good they are. And I feel like unfortunately some of the stuff maybe she's been releasing is not up to par. But I just don't think that Taylor Selena, I think there's too much anticipation for something that no matter what they did, it would never meet the expectation.
Yeah.
And they've known that since the Speak Now era.
And to be honest, that's fine with me. I don't mind that. Obviously it'd be iconic. Obviously it's something that we would absolutely adore. I think collaborating together in music would be so interesting to see. But whatever. It just feels like it's very... Like, it's been overdue for so long that now it's like, I don't think it's going to happen, and that's fine. But one thing I want to bring up quickly is that it's funny, so much time has gone on, even the music industry and the landscape of artists has completely changed since we recorded this.
I was looking at this list and thinking, God, really?
Yeah, like some of these people haven't been around for a while, other people just...
Or aren't in the public consciousness anymore.
Or are on such different journeys in their music that I don't think it would work. So who do we think may work nowadays? Because I honestly don't know. Because the only person that I can see that perhaps at some point a collaboration coming out, obviously we had Gracie and then that happened, is Sabrina. But I honestly thought Sabrina was going to be 1989, and that is what lends itself the best, to be honest.
Exactly.
What was all that teasing for, Sabrina?
Ice Spice. Taylor's rumoured to be on Ice Spice.
Upcoming, yeah. So yeah, that's not confirmed. We don't know, but yes.
Yeah. Because she was saying the other day, she was asked, I believe yesterday actually, on day of recording, about Taylor being featured, and she was like, well, you know, she did me the favour, like, we'll see. Okay. So there's a potential.
Yeah.
But not sure. But I could see something like that, maybe. Maybe someone like Griff.
Okay, that's interesting. Yeah. I am kind of leaning towards, like you said, the Eras Tour adjacent people, because they are the ones that she can really work with the most at this point in time.
Obviously Drake, Selena, we've kind of discussed those. Troye Sivan, because he was obviously brought out as a special guest. I just don't know if that would work now. I think it could. Hayley Kiyoko, she was obviously a special guest, then Taylor performed Delicate with her, then she was in the You Need to Calm Down music video as the Archer. Not sure. Halsey, again, not sure. I think that she's having a lot of kind of health things at the moment, so I'm not sure if maybe she's, you know, in the place to start collaborating. And again, we haven't really seen her and Taylor since really the Lover era either. Maybe someone like Camila Cabello.
I won't say what I'm going to say.
She hasn't really been around yet.
I had a visceral reaction.
She hasn't really been around since the kind of rep Love it era either.
I won't speak.
And I don't know if that would work either.
I won't speak.
Yeah, and then we also just said BTS.
And that was me, I think. That was because, no, a little rap moment. Come on now. Little rap moment with the rap line. Namjoon.
Are they? They're not a thing at the moment.
Some of them...
They are, but you know what I mean?
Yeah, except for one. One of them is out. Jin is now out of their duties. The rest of them are all very much away. However, they pre-recorded a lot of content which has now been coming out little by little for the fans. Obviously wouldn't have been available in the last couple of years altogether, for sure, to be able to do anything, but I was kind of like floating that around because I hear we went a bit rogue with these ones,
because we also mentioned Ariana Grande.
Yeah, which is also very...
It's always a rogue one, because there's always that rumour, isn't there, of the Afterglow supposedly had Ariana on it, which I just never believed like that.
I don't know.
She was very
it's
much
these
in
things.
Scooter's
Yeah.
little paws, you know. Obviously now she isn't, so potentially, but I align with Ariana Grande.
And with Reputation and the music she has put out since, it just doesn't sound right anymore to me.
No. No. And then our final suggestion was Miley Cyrus, who obviously I would love. That was more just I would love it.
Yeah.
But again, Miley has taken a massive step back from kind of the public.
Yeah. I mean, since Flowers and Endless Summer Vacation, I have not personally myself.
She does very low-key things.
Right.
Like she's done a couple of photo shoots here and there. Her Gucci perfume thing is kind of relaunching again.
Okay.
Version. So she's just kind of very behind the scenes. She had a little like performance on Netflix, just like a little interview and performance. So it's very low-key. She obviously did collab with Beyonce, and so did Post Malone.
Right. Yes.
So, you know, maybe she's kind of up for collaborations. I don't know. And Taylor and Kelsey Ballerini were very supportive of the Flowers performance.
True.
I'm just clutching at straws.
Yeah,
but
we know.
I don't think that would really work either. I don't think any of these.
No, now that I look at our list, that's what I was saying. Like, I just don't see any of these people anymore on our list. But I don't know who I do see. This is the problem. And maybe Reputation stays as it was in the same way that 1989 did.
I think another thing we mentioned as well, which is really interesting, is about the potential absence of Max Martin, obviously from him not being on the Red Taylor's version. And obviously what's really interesting is 1989, those Max Martin Shellback songs were all produced by Christopher Rowe. So potentially that might be the same, do you think, for rap?
Wow, what an undertaking. Christopher Rowe, mainly...
He must have a lot of time on his hands, bless him.
Mainly we thought it was very much country-based, like his production, but obviously 1989 proves very much different. It's funny, recently obviously Taylor did the Max Martin special because he was at one of the Eras tour.
His tour shows, yes.
So,
yes. He was there with like Katy Perry and that, wasn't he?
And it's like...
Katy Perry, what about that as a potential collab, do you think?
I shan't speak. I shan't say what I want to say.
I would love it. I'd love it. I love Katy Perry.
I don't know. I'm very...
I love Katy.
Listen,
I think a bit like Selena, she's got an unappreciated discography, and her deep cuts are solid.
Yeah, no, listen, I really love Katie's music, mostly because I haven't really kept up with everything. She does know how to come out and give the people what they want. However, her recent release didn't captivate me. I was like built up with the hype for KP5 and how she was teasing it, and I was like, yes, okay, Katie, go off.
6.
Sorry, KP6, thank you. And how she was teasing it.
You're in the room with a Kate cat.
Oh, not a Kate cat. Oh my gosh. Oh no. I better get my facts straight. Yeah, sorry.
No. I don't know if I am. Anyways, I do.
You appreciate her music. That's great. Yeah. Listen, she has got a very solid discography. Very, very solid, I have to say.
Potentially, she might be, but again, I'm not sure if that would work.
I don't know.
Because Taylor she has definitely fine-tuned and toned down her collaborators. You know, her world is very Jack Antonoff, Aaron Dessner.
Yeah.
You know, and their peripheral, you know, like who they
work with as well. Yeah. I mean,
but then she did...
Post Malone
was a bit rogue at the time.
Post Malone was a bit random. I mean, it had been a long time coming, but at the same time, yeah, Florence, although she has... I do feel like she is in the periphery because of, it's difficult to say, will Max Martin ever return? I don't think so. Reputation has a lot of heavy production to it, so Chris Rowe, I'm putting my faith in you.
Yes, come on, don't let us down.
That leads us finally to our final thoughts on Debut, Taylor's version. Now, this is the episode that we did most recently. It was our last Taylor's version episode, so we were able to kind of formulate some of our thoughts, basing ourselves on things that we had already seen for Taylor's version that had been released at that point. So that's the only good thing. It was a bit more up to date. However, there are a few things that are interesting to note now. For example, the performance of Crazier.
Don't. Yes, that has changed things 100%, because that song has basically never been acknowledged.
No.
Never performed, never really mentioned.
We have to just the elephant in the room. Obviously, Taylor performed Crazier suddenly on the Eras tour, mere days after we mentioned, or after you mentioned, Cameron, that you would like her to perform it at. A couple of days afterwards, she could have saved it for a few days.
Yes.
Yeah. I felt gutted. Honestly, when I saw that, I was so gutted for you.
Oh, don't. Yeah. I'll never forget it, thinking when you sent me that message, being like, because I was like, I'm going to avoid it. Then I decided not to avoid it, watched it. She did all the girls. I thought, perfect, fine.
Yeah.
Then I got your message and I was like, oh no, she's played Tim McGraw, she's played...
I was like, Cameron, I'm so sorry.
And then I was like, oh no, she's literally played the worst song. You know what I mean? The one that I was...
I just couldn't believe it. I really, really couldn't believe it.
9 years old.
It was just so rogue. But let's look at the bright side of things.
Yeah.
Number one, it has been acknowledged. Number two, it has finally been played live. And number three, that opens up the can of worms of re-recording it. This we mentioned at the time, and I stand by our word. I do think that we might get Crazier on Debut or on Debut Periphery.
Oh, 100%.
Amazing. Great news, honestly. This is brilliant.
It's exciting, yes, because I didn't think that was a potential a while ago,
Which also opens up to one thing that we've previously discussed in this episode. You'll always find your way back home, potentially for Debut as well.
Possibility. I think it's more likely than this is what you came for.
Right. Yeah. There's not so much.
I think
problem around it.
Drama.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then we also mentioned, obviously, Beautiful Eyes, I Heart ? Which were both kind of like in and around and released in the Debut era. I still stand by them as well, to be honest with you.
Yeah,
I'm very much happy with those predictions.
I don't think they'll have an Eras tour moment, but I think they...
No.
I'll probably bite my words and she'll play it tomorrow.
Yeah.
But I don't know about an Eras tour moment, but I would be surprised if not, because Beautiful Eyes is technically on streaming, on that weird and wonderful live album that Big Machine randomly released.
Yeah, it's there.
There's that live version. So, there is a version of it on streaming. So, there's competition there because that is owned by Big Machine. So
very true.
Makes sense.
Yeah. Other than that, I pretty much stand by all of the things that we got into in that episode. If you guys do want to check it out, we'll leave a link, but it is basically our Debut Taylor's version episode where we went into which songs. There is such a vast discography of unreleased
we could
songs.
Be here all day.
Yeah.
There's so much. I think we did have to be quite strict on the ones we mentioned because
definitely
it's endless. It's just like an endless black hole of like you find one and there's another and there's another and there's
just the document goes on and on and on with names. But I guess the last thing that we can kind of comment on before we close off, collaborators for Debut. Interesting, because a lot of artists have recently very much leaned into acoustic moments / country moments. I do think Taylor was very influential in that. Folklore and Evermore set the tone for many artists. I do think that. I really, really do. And now we are seeing the ripple effect, because obviously they had to work on their own things for a few months, years, whatever. And now we are seeing the production of that. A lot of artists are exploring kind of that world, whether it be very acoustic.
Post Malone, Beyonce.
Yeah. Now, I'm not saying Taylor was the reason. Obviously, they have... I mean, Beyonce, for example, has such a vast discography that if she wants to explore whatever she wants to explore, that's absolutely fine. But it does open the world of Debut to a bigger pool. Yeah, bigger pool of artists.
It makes it more relevant and popular again. Definitely, country music is kind of definitely at the forefront again. So it's the perfect time, really, to kind of release her most country album.
Yeah, definitely. And I'm glad it has opened up so much in many different ways. Obviously, Beyonce's work is incredible for the genre.
Oh yeah, the way that Beyonce has exposed that genre to just so many new fans and just opened up that kind of genre and highlighted it for its good and bad.
Yeah.
Which is wonderful, and like so glad that someone's done that. And I massively applaud her and have so much respect for what she's done to country music and who she's opened it up to and the things she's discussed. And yeah, no, really, really impressive. So now is the perfect time, really.
Oh my god, are we saying Beyonce and Taylor on debut?
Imagine, maybe. I don't know. I don't know.
No,
I don't think so.
I don't think so either. But I just feel like debut has to be so very like stripped back to that time. The names that we did mention were Tim McGraw, Shania Twain, Kelsey Ballerini, Maren Morris. I stand by that.
There's two on there I'm going to debunk.
Okay.
Which is going to be, one of them is going to be sad. Maren Morris. Right. She's already on Fearless.
That is true. Yeah, realistically, why did we put this actually? Yeah, that's very, very true.
It's probably not going to happen. The other is Tim McGraw. He is signed to Big Machine.
Oh, Tim McGraw.
It's never going to happen.
That is a shame. Okay.
What's interesting though is he has been leaning in, I believe on his most recent tour he's been performing Highway Don't Care.
Okay.
The background has had the music video with Taylor and he's kind of been leaning into that collab with her.
That's terrible. I didn't realise that. Yeah. I guess we didn't. Yeah.
I had forgotten.
Okay, I see. Well, there you go. Again, we have updated. We have updated our information once again. So that leaves us with Shania Twain and Kelsey Ballerini, which very, very solid, honestly. For more recent,
both those happening.
Gracie again, perhaps. I feel like
potentially
she could go, kind of more of a stripped back kind of moment. But no, them two are quite solid, to be honest with you, I think.
Yeah, I can see that happening. Definitely Kelsey and Shania I could see as potential. I think it's more like people, because like some like Beyonce and stuff, for example, I'm trying to think of the type of songs that are unreleased on debut. Same. Imagine Beyonce and I'd Lie. Like it just wouldn't work. Like she's way too like vocally impressive and like
how's she gonna be like in the background like
singing like
I'd Lie. No, and honestly, if that ever happens, if Beyonce and Taylor ever do collaborate, it's kind of like what we were saying about BTS earlier. Like
it would be massive.
It has to be like such a big moment because the fandoms are massive.
Oh yeah, exactly. But yeah, Kelsey I can definitely see working, and Shania I think those two are still realistic, and I'm trying to think of other maybe like smaller country artists that might collab, but I think the problem is a lot of country artists are under Big Machine nowadays.
It's funny that how they kind of have a little bit of like a monopoly over certain aspects.
They do.
Yeah,
because I believe people like Little Big Town, Sugarland, things like that, the people that Taylor's kind of work with. Maybe someone like Dasha, the girl that has the song, the like Austin, like Did Your Boots Start Working, Did Your Truck Break Down, that song?
I don't, but you are much more in the country world than I, so...
But massive on TikTok, so potentially someone like her.
Right.
Like if she's kind of... Because she often goes for like an artist that's kind of... She used to.
Yeah, not so much. That kind of like broke with Speak Now, to be honest with you. Yeah, because we have two very much big names established, been there, and people around in the era.
Around at the time as well. Yeah. So we never know.
Yes.
I think it's open, but I think that Debut Vault would really benefit from collaborators.
Definitely. When I think of Debut, I think that it needs a springboard somehow. It needs a gimmick. It needs something. Just because it's a 2006 album. Many of us are on board with it. We know that it's going to be incredible, but I do think it's a different relationship that people have with Reputation than they do with Debut, right? So if you ask anyone right now, like general public, Swifties, fully fledged Swifties, anyone, they'd be like, oh my god, yes, I'm so excited for Reputation.
It's only us two that are banging on about bloody Debut.
Yeah.
Everyone, shut up.
Exactly. Yeah, I'm sure that there are many of our listeners as well. I'm sure, because I know you guys are diehards from the start to the very end. You know, a lot of people aren't so much country leaning. They don't like country as much,
and it isn't featured on the Eras tour
because it's not having that platform. I do wonder, and I said this back then, and I'm going to reiterate it again now. I do wonder if she is saving it for a specific reason to be used in a different way,
alongside something.
Alongside, maybe, I don't know, maybe it's going to be the longest album that we get from the re-recording. Maybe it's going to have the most collaborators. Maybe it's going to go hand in hand with something. Special acoustic performance, special documentary, something.
Heavy promotion.
I really would like to see it have its moment and not just be like a little, on his debut.
Yeah, no.
I hope.
It deserves so much more than that. Yeah, it really does deserve more than that. And the thing is Taylor, like, she loves breaking a record. She loves a number one. So I think, she's not going to want any album to just kind of, sink away into the lake of music. She wants it to have its time, have its moment, break some records. So fingers crossed.
Also, debut is coming up to be 20 years old, by the way.
Crazy.
Let that sink in.
Isn't it? Crazy that it's a...
But it holds up so well.
It's a teenager. It's not a 20-year-old. You know what I mean? Like, how is it that old?
Debut's a little baby. I mean, come on. When I first started listening to Taylor, debut was not even like 3.
No.
I don't know. I really do hope it does have a little moment like that. And I do feel like it's a separate entity at the moment. That doesn't mean that maybe in 2 months' time she suddenly sings Mary's song and says, and here's debut at midnight. Who knows?
Yeah.
Who knows with Taylor? As always, our predictions are just very much, it's fun to speculate, it's fun to go back and compare and see, and using the information that we have now, try and correct some of the things that we may have said, just to get it up to date. And now we have nothing else to do but wait, really.
Yes, now we do. I'm glad that we've kind of reassessed, because Reputation definitely, I feel like, what we said at the time, even though it was very accurate to what we knew at that time, it definitely changed. So I'm glad we've done this. I'm glad we've kind of, reflected, looked forward in this kind of, not lull, because we're definitely not in a lull, but in this kind of like Eras tour moment where, maybe there isn't an album or new music either being promoted like imminent or kind of like a heavy focus, because at the moment we're definitely still focusing on kind of all the eras with the Eras tour. So yeah, it's good to kind of reevaluate before potential, but as we've said at the start, this is not really for music, quite the opposite. I have barely processed Speak Now, I barely posted 1989, let alone Tortured Poets.
Yeah.
So we've been spoiled for about 5 years. So yeah, but no, exciting. I'm definitely glad we've done it and kind of reassessed and made it most up to date as possible. And it does also make you excited for these potential.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, definitely. Well, it basically is also just a way to serve as a reminder that whatever happens with what's coming, whatever, we still have these 2 amazing projects to explore. And as we always bang on when we talk about the Taylor's versions, it's so interesting to be able to do that. To be able to have the relevancy of a 20-year-old album, which honestly, Taylor's version has also, the project itself has also been a domino effect for many, many things and many, many other artists. Yes. And I feel like now we are living in a moment where artists are looking back at their own discography and celebrating them louder than they may have previously in the past.
Definitely. I think it really has made a lot of artists re-record,
reevaluate their positions in the music industry. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, definitely. It really, really has. And I think, not to kind of end on a downer, like a bit of a downer, it's kind of crazy. We only do have 2 left, and after these 2, that's it for the Taylor's version.
It just becomes, in a way, it's safe.
It's kind of a bit crazy.
Yeah, in a way, it's kind of like, I feel safe at the moment because I know, like, whatever happens, we have the rest of the Eras tour, we have these 2 re-recordings, and then after that, it becomes like a no man's land. Join us as we explore whatever is to come next. As always, thank you very, very, very much for listening. If you did enjoy this episode and you're listening over on YouTube, make sure to give it a thumbs up, and as we said before, leave us a comment as well. What are you most excited about, or which collaborators do you think we missed out or we may have forgotten and you think that really should appear on these re-recording projects? Other than that, make sure to subscribe if you do want to keep up to date with us, and you can also follow us over on Instagram. Our handle is @SwiftlySpokenPodcast.